As you push aside the last thorn branches, the forest suddenly falls into silence. A clearing opens before you, dappled with green sunlight filtering through the treetops. At its center, 4 stone obelisks stand around a moss-covered altar, and etched deep into it, a fading inscription reads as follows: 4 guardians are waiting still, each must face what bends their will. To their master they shall bow, to reveal the path below. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. As you saw in the intro, the stone sarcophagus is not a grave, but a cleverly disguised entrance to a hidden stairway leading underground. The lid is magically sealed, and to reveal the staircase, your party will need to resolve the riddle. In this tutorial, I will show you how to craft a mystical forest puzzle featuring 4 obelisks that each pivot. As usual, if you are not interested by the craft, you will find at the end of the video the solution to the puzzle, as well as some role-playing tips. If you are not yet subscribed, please consider doing it. And without further ado, let's start this tutorial with the base. The easiest way is to use EVA foam, but you can also use XPS foam, MDF or cardboard. Just be mindful that the last two can bend easily. The 2 next steps are not mandatory. First, I traced with a hobby knife the general layout of my base, and then I will use the hot glue gun in order to make the roots. The easiest way is to start with a big blob and then to twist the line, and at the end you will make it as thin as possible. Here you will have to trust the process. You will see at the end that the result will be really good. Once fully dried, you will paint it with any kind of brown. Here you have the result after 2 coats. You can already see that the roots are improving. And now we'll do another layer of hot glue. For this, you will use the nose of your hot glue gun in order to carve the roots. Make the layer of glue as thin as possible, and don't think too much about it. The more random, the better it will look like. If you have not yet done it, it's the perfect time to subscribe, comment and like this video if you like it so far. As you can see, now it really looks like roots, and it will be even better after some dry brush. Not mandatory, but while I was doing it, I received my Game Master Terrain Primer from The Army Painter and decided to give it a try. If interested, I did a full review of 4 different colors from this brand. And now for the dry brush. If you don't know this technique, basically the idea is to remove the excess paint from your brush and to only hit the highest part of your build. And for each additional coat, you will mix in your paint some light tone. Here, for example, I will use some beige, but you can also add some white. To make it look like more realistic roots, I also mix up some other shade of brown. And for the final highlight, you will only use the light tone. It was the first time that I make some hot glue roots, and I was quite happy with the result. I want to give a shout out to the fine people on the subreddit Terrain Building that gave me a lot of tips to do that. And now we'll do the stonework with the altar and the pillars. As usual, you will start with a sheet of XPS foam and you will texturize it using some foil paper. Here I will do all the bases of the pillars. I'm using a 1 cm sheet of XPS foam, so when I'm done I can simply split it in 2 to have 2 exact same squares. And that's why in order to do 4 pillars, I'm only doing 2 squares of each size. But finally, I redid the first layer of all the bases to be 7 mm high, while the second layer of the base as well as the top of the pillar are still 5 mm high. And for the pillar itself, it will be a square of 2 cm with a height of 5 cm. At this step, you still need to carve the pillars, but it will roughly look like that. Of course, you can keep a straight pillar, but if you want it to look like more an obelisk, you will need to carve it. To do that, simply draw a square at the top of the pillar, and then link its corner to the corner of the base of the pillar. And then simply cut the line you just made. If you have access to an angle cutter, it will be also far quicker and far easier. Just draw one line as I explained in the previous step, and once you have the correct angle, you can rinse and repeat and cut all your pillars. And here you have the result once everything is cut. And now, to make the complex rotating engine, we'll use some toothpicks. For this, on the side that will not be seen, you can draw a cross that links all the corners of all the pieces that you just made in order to find the perfect middle of each piece. And in this middle, you will push in the toothpicks. Be careful that on the basis you can cross it completely, but not on the top, and when you are done, you need to cut the toothpick at the perfect length. It needs to be exactly the size of the two bases, plus the pillar, plus half of the top. I will advise you to not glue anything yet, it will be more easy for the paint job. But if you do, please remember to not glue together the bases. If you do, the pillar will not be able to rotate. For the top parts, honestly, it's not mandatory to use the toothpick. You can glue it directly to the pillar, but I believe that it adds more stability to the build. If you do, please make sure to not use the pointy part of the toothpick, because it will cross easily the top part. And so basically, you should now have something like that. Here, I make the pillar rotate on itself, but on the last step, I will glue it to the first base, again for stability. For the next step, I will carve a cartouche in order to make the runes in it. For each carving in this build, the technique will always be the same. You will start with a pointy tool, like a hobby knife, and then you will enlarge it with a pencil. And when you have your hobby knife, you can also damage the pillar the way you like. When you are done, don't forget to texture everything. And here is your final pillars. All the inscription will be done on a later stage. And now we'll do the stone sarcophagus. It looks like it's complex, but honestly, you simply have to work by layer. For the middle part and for the lid, it will be two rectangles of 8 by 5 cm. One will be 2 cm high and the other one half a centimeter high. For the pieces below the middle and below the lid, it will be 8.5 by 5 by 5, with the height of 0.2 and 0.4. And finally, the ground base of the sarcophagus will be 9 by 6, with a height of half a centimeter. And to build the sarcophagus, it will be the ground base, the middle, the part below the lid, and the lid. And as you can see, the sides of the lid are beveled. We'll use again the same engraving technique in order to do a cartouche for the sarcophagus. I left approximately 2 cm on each side of the cartouche and half a centimeter on top and below it. And again, I will deepen the engraving with some pencil. And here, I will do random scribbles in order to do the engraving for the riddle. However, this time, I will not deepen it with a pencil. And again, while you have your pointy tools, don't hesitate to damage the sarcophagus and to texture it. And I will do a final cartouche on the lid of the sarcophagus. Again, I will leave half a centimeter on each side. And finally, you can do the runes. For it, I took inspiration from Naruto and from the fifth element. And finally, I did some random drawing on the lid. On the middle part, I will draw a cartouche, but only to help myself to cut it straight. Start the cut at one corner, and then we will cover it during the next step. Basically here, the idea is to make some rooms for stairs, ladder, or some treasures. And also make sure to not throw away the middle part that you just cut, because it will be the perfect size to do the stairs. Basically, you will cut it in 4 exact parts and you will glue it back by shifting each piece by 1 cm. If done properly, it will give you a perfectly fitting set of stairs. And if you paid attention, if you reverse the leftover part, it will give you the exact same stairs. And finally, you will cut those corner pieces in any cubes of the same height as the middle part of your sarcophagus. And it has 2 main benefits. First, it's really dope, and second, it will cover the cut that you made in the previous step. Not mandatory, but in order for the lid to not move when closed, I added some additional pieces. But then, I had a brain fart and took a really long time to realize the issue that I just created. So after removing the piece that was hitting the stair, it closed properly. And here is the final result for the sarcophagus. Here you have all the stonework after a first coat of black paint. Here I decided to glue everything together in order to make sure to not use some paint on parts that will not be visible at the end. Again, for the pillars, in order to be able to rotate it, please make sure to not glue everything together. The obelisk part can be left alone, or it can be glued on the first base. And here you have the result after a second coat of black paint. And again, we'll use a dry brushing technique, here after the first coat with some grey, here after a second coat with some beige in it, here after a third coat with more beige in it, and here a final coat for highlight with only white. You may also have noticed that I left the interior base of the sarcophagus black. It was done on purpose in order to create a sense of depth. Alternatively, if you don't want to do the stairs, you can also simply print those pictures and glue it at the bottom of your sarcophagus. The next step is not mandatory, but if you want to tie all the colors together, you can apply some wash on your build. For this, I will be using some black ink, but you can also use some black paint. Mix it with some water and then you will add a dip of soap. Mix everything together and then apply generously on all your pieces. If there is any excess, you can simply remove it with a paper towel. And here you have the final result. Not mandatory, but if you want to protect your build, you can use a matte sealer. Here again, I'm using the Game Master matte sealer from the Army Painter. And finally, you can glue everything on the bases. You will also notice that I glue some washer. It's to make the base more modular. Indeed, like that, I will be able to replace some trees with some bush or by other terrain pieces. And the final step will be the decoration of the base with some mushroom and some grass. For the shrooms, it's super easy. You will use your hot glue gun and you will do some blobs on a non-sticky paper. Leave it to dry but not too much, because you will need to stick toothpick in it. And here you got your first mushroom. Cut the foot but not too short, you will see why later. And later is actually just now. You see, with a long foot you can stick it easily in any piece of foam and it will be super useful for the paint job. I'm using a spray paint from Citadel, but honestly you can use any type of beige paint, it's just that it will be far more quicker this way. Leave it to dry properly before you go to the next step. For the next step, we'll use some bright red. And for more variety, you can also use some dark red. It can be as dark as my friend's paladin character. And you can also make some brown or left some beige. And for an Icewind Dale campaign, I also did some blue ones. Next, for the red ones, we'll use some white dots. To do that, simply cut a toothpick and use it as a brush. For the other types of mushroom, you can also dry brush with some beige. And finally, with a small brush, you can correct all the dots. And the final step for those mushrooms will be to apply a gouache varnish. If you put too much on the first one, like I did, don't worry, you can use it as a palette for the next ones. And here is the final result. Now it's time to finish the base. For this, you will apply some white glue everywhere, and then you will spread it with a wet brush. Make sure to go step by step and to not do the full base at once. And then you will simply spread some static grass on the glue. And make sure to work above a tray, like that you can collect back some static grass. To add some variety, you can add some fake moss of different colors. Compared to the static grass, it's quite inexpensive, especially on Amazon. Simply apply some white glue where you want the fake moss to stick, and that's it. And now you can glue all the mushrooms. I tried with some tacky glue, but it was not sufficient, so at the end I used some hot glue that I covered with some moss. And with that, the build is almost done. Now we just need to make some bases to cover the washes. The technique is exactly the same as for the shrooms, but in the blob you will add a magnet. And you can play around and make different types of bases. But don't forget to cover all the glue with static grass. And when you are done, it should look something like that. Honestly, I think it's one of my best builds so far, but let me know in the comments what do you think. And for those interested by the puzzle, I will now present you the solution, as well as some DM tips in order to run it. Each obelisk can rotate on itself to point at one of the 4 other obelisks. Only the correct alignment of all 4 will activate the vault mechanism. Players must arrange the stones in the correct elemental order based on the riddle. Wind will increase the fire, fire is extinguished by water, water is absorbed by earth, and earth is eroded by wind. When the correct configuration is achieved, the sarcophagus will rumble and slide open, revealing the staircase below, or a ladder, or any treasure. This part is entirely up to you. For D&D initiation, or if your party struggle too much, you may introduce a ghostly druid or a forest guardian spirit who could offer some cryptic guidances. It could also guard the passage in case your party want to bypass the riddle by destroying the altar. Alternatively, on a successful perception check, one player could notice subtle groove lines beneath each obelisk, hinting that they can rotate. You could also add more riddles carved at the base of each obelisk. For example, Earth's obelisk could read, "I stand unmoved facing the wave." If they don't find the correct configuration, you can say that nothing happened, or you can read the following for additional challenge. The stone trembles slightly, but nothing happens. Suddenly, the trees creaks ominously. From the undergrowth, thick roots begin slithering toward you. The forest does not take kindly to mistakes. Roll for initiative! You are attacked by awakened trees. And finally, Once your party finds the correct solution, you could read the following. A breeze stirs the treetops as the forest seems to exhale. The roots pulse gently, then draw back into the ground with a soft groan. The altar shifts, stone grinding against stone, revealing a hidden stairwell descending into the earth. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, don't hesitate to let me know in the comment, to like the video and to subscribe to my channel. Thank you and see you next time.